Hello, Chubby and Coos fans. It's me, Candace, here again for an author event that I am really excited about. And hopefully we get a lot of people tuning in because I think this one's going to be really fun. So today I have with us Amanda Montell, who is the author of the book Wordslut. And you may or may not have been here, but she did come here when the hardback came out as well and did a book signing. So today we're launching the paperback of the book, which came out last week. And so we're going to get to know Amanda and Wordslut a little bit better today. Amanda is a writer and reporter from Baltimore, and she's had bylines in Marie Claire, Cosmopolitan, Woman's Day, The Rumpus, Birdie.com, and Who, What, Where. Amanda holds a degree in linguistics from NYU, and she used that degree to write this book. And as a pop linguist, Amanda's insights have been featured in places like Glamour and Bustle and Bus Magazine. And she's currently working on the Wordslut TV adaptation for FX, which is going to be exciting. I hope that goes through and it all is great because I would love to watch it. And she's also working on a second book about the language of cults, which I am also excited to read. And some fun facts about Amanda. Her favorite English word is nook, which is my favorite English word is cow. And her favorite foreign word is tartle, which is the Scottish term for when you hesitate while introducing someone because you've forgotten their name. So welcome, Amanda. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. For those who don't know, Candace and I are related, and I decided to create a trivia question later when we get into all of that to see how many people can get it right and guess how exactly we're related.
Nice.
So yeah, I want to thank you so much for having me and for doing this with me. Obviously, you know, there's so much going on in the world right now, and I felt sort of a sense of responsibility as someone who's had the privilege to access so much linguistics scholarship having to do with language and power and language and culture and language and identity, to come on here and share some of that. You know, this book talks mostly about language and gender, and how that relates to power and access. But that conversation absolutely cannot be had without talking about race and without talking about the, injustices and oppressions that are reflected in our culture and continue to be perpetuated and enforced in our culture, having to do with language. Some of that scholarship that I've been so privileged to be able to access comes from, Black linguists who've dedicated their lives to, spreading information to undo the myths and some of the truly problematic, oppressive ideas that so many white Americans hold about how Black Americans use language and about how we use language to describe the Black experience or Black Americans. And, I'm not just talking about, using the N-word or using really problematic words like thugs. That's really not, I'm sure I'm not the only one who grew up in a school system that taught me from very early childhood that African-American English, Black English, of course, we didn't have language to describe it at the time, was just improper English, bad English, poor grammar. And I was privileged to have access to watch this documentary just today called Talking Black America that really was so illuminating and reminded me of things that I learned in linguistics about how those ideas about English and improper English are not only wrong and incorrect and problematic, but they really work in a super material way to reinforce the racial order in this culture and to keep sound problems with me. Are you able to hear me, Candace?
I can hear you. You're kind of going in and out sometimes. It might be something with your mic. I can still hear what you're saying, but it is kind of like.
I wonder if there's a way to, let's see. Okay, I like muted myself and turned back on. I'm like so deficient when it comes to IT. If I get closer, does it help?
I think so. I think there's just a little echo.
Oh, it could be because I'm in a big, spacious room. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to relocate really quick.
Okay.
I'm just going to take this over here. No problem, just in the middle of having a kind of, heavy conversation and all, but that's okay. We're going to go here. This is where I film my Amanda University videos. Sometimes headphones help. That's a good point. All right.
I can hear you way better now, though.
Can you hear me better now? Okay. Let me know, y'all, if it's still a problem, and if so, I can retrieve some headphones. But yeah, I was watching this incredible documentary this morning that was exploring and really generously illuminating some of these myths that really criticize not just Black Americans' language but their very identity, because the two go hand in hand. And I want to read some quotes, because at the same time that it's just inaccurate to describe African American vernacular English, African American English, as poor English, seeing as it's an incredibly sophisticated, systematic dialect. It's also, a reflection of something even more sophisticated that Black Americans learned to do from very early on, which is to code switch, which is a form of bilingualism that should be celebrated instead of condemned. Meanwhile, oh, great. Okay, it's sounding better. Good, I'm glad. Not to mention, some of our most beloved language in English comes from African American English. Some of our best slang, words as new as fuckboy and woke, and words as old as the phrase 24/7. And I had a linguist. I spoke to a linguist while writing this book named Sonia Lanehart, who studies African American English, specifically how women use it. She's at the University of Texas at Austin, and she very kindly said, that we don't. Oh yeah, you didn't know about the documentary? I didn't either. And I would encourage you to Google it. This Talking Black in America, which is a documentary put together by the Language and Life Project, which is an amazing project that serves to highlight voices, particularly from the American South. So Sonia Lanehart was telling me, we don't have to give up using the products of African American English, just as we don't have to stop listening to hip hop or stop dressing in a way that is inspired by African American culture, Black culture. But what we do have to do at the very least is to support these communities at every turn, because this culture, this language was created as a product of this community's innovation, but also their oppression. And, it wasn't just something fun that they created for no reason. It very much has to do with solidarity and community and survival. And so I wanted to read some of the quotes from this documentary, because I think there's actually a paywall right now in order to watch it, but I think that the director might let down that paywall soon. But one of the interviewees said, it's so interesting, this issue of identity, language, acceptance, and inclusion or exclusion. I want to be included, so I will have to use a certain type of language, that being standard American English, which, by the way, how boring is it? It was just, an arbitrary form of English that was made up by a bunch of stuffy white grammarians only a few hundred years ago, that we all take to be the default. We think it is this unchanging thing that has always been here, and that is just default correct and better because it is white and because it is privileged. And that just couldn't be further from the truth. Another linguist said, people have the impression that African American English is nothing but a collection of errors, because that's how we've been socialized. If it's not standard English, it's wrong. So we all have this framework that we've been indoctrinated into, that there's a right and a wrong in language. But language itself is always right, because there's always a pattern to it. And, the history of African American English is incredibly complex and poorly documented because Black stories are terribly documented in our culture. But I do have an article that I can share here if people want to explore it. Oh, do you know how I comment? I suck. I've never used this before.
So on your screen on the right where you're seeing comments, all the way at the bottom, you should be able to post a comment as well.
Oh, wow. It's not letting me do that for some reason. But I will share that article later when I somehow figure that out. But, learning about the incredibly complex history of this dialect in English is incredibly illuminating, and I think will shed light on how we can better appreciate this culture and this language and better support it. So I was initially going to read the opening few pages of Wordslut, but I think everybody tuning in here probably knows pretty much what Wordslut is all about. I can post it in the comments later if anything. Yeah, I'll do that. So I'm going to read another excerpt that talks about this topic. And obviously this topic is so complex, and I am hardly the person who should be communicating it, but I do feel a responsibility to do so. But I also just want to share for those tuning in, like sort of how the run of show will go here. So I'm going to read this excerpt, which I hope will start some conversations. And then, learning can't always be fun, and it shouldn't always be fun, but we're going to transition into some slightly more lighthearted territory here. And I'm going to lead a game of Wordslut trivia, which I hope will be both educational and enjoyable. And then we're going to do a little drinking game involving where's this beautiful quote you just read about no wrong in language from? That's from this documentary that I watched this morning that's just fresh in my mind and so inspiring to me. It's called Talking Black in America, and I would encourage you to look it up. There's so many quotes. I was just furiously writing down quotes about code switching, about the history of African American English. It's incredibly complex, heartbreaking but inspiring history. I think people don't always realize how historical events influence language and how language develops. And the West African slave trade and the migration of Black Americans from the American South to the North. I would just really encourage people to investigate that because it's fascinating and has everything to do with thanks. I thought it was part of the book. Greetings from Argentina. So nice to see you. Yeah, I'm going to read part of a book momentarily, but yeah, so then we're going to do a little drinking game and then I'm going to take some questions, and I would encourage people to stay to the end because there's a little password that we're going to give out that you can type in a Google survey that we've put together, and we'll pick one person who types in that password to win a free copy of the newly released paperback of Wordslut, which is so cute. And I'm so delighted that I had the opportunity to have the book released in paperback. It's a little bit more affordable, so that's good. And also throughout this live stream, I want to encourage people, if you have any money to spare whatsoever, I know so many of us have been donating throughout these past few weeks, but if you have anything to spare, to click to this link, colorofchange.org, and whatever is raised throughout this hour or so, I'm going to personally match because I figured if we're doing this live stream and if we're celebrating the learning about language and power, then the least that we can do is something positive with it. So I'm going to read a section from the part of the book called How to Embarrass the Shit Out of People Who Try to Correct Your Grammar. And I denounce pedantry, as many descriptivist linguists do, a lot throughout this book. But here's a part that talks about it specifically as it relates to African American English and race, and so many of the misconceptions that even well-meaning people come to learn from early childhood about this stuff. So I'm on page 161, if anyone has a copy. In the United States, a mastery of English grammar has become tied to the American dream itself. A friend of mine, who is first-generation American, once told me that when she was growing up, her Japanese father made her put $1 in a jar every time she used a slang word. He thought it made me sound low class, she said. he was an immigrant. For folks like my friend's dad, speaking proper English is the way to the big house with the white picket fence. It's the idea that if you want to be a CEO, then you have to talk like one. You have to sound like one. And not caring about grammar means not caring about your future itself. All that said, it's also true that not all language purists have the same background or whip out their red pen with the same agenda in mind. Plenty of folks oppose things like singular they due to their social conservatism. But some of the biggest grammar snobs in America actually come from the political left. Linguist Deborah Cameron has said that one of the first things she noticed upon joining Twitter in 2014 was how often educated progressive types called upon their superior grammar skills to confront bigots. Take a look at this Twitter exchange from 2016. Tweet A reads, "As a straight male, how would you feel about your child having a homosexual school teacher who they're around for 8 hours of the day? They're spelled incorrectly, Their. Tweet B, "If a gay teacher teaches my child the difference between there, and there, I'm good," with all 3 different spellings. For the record, messing up there, and there, or your, and your, the 3 spellings of each, is technically an issue of spelling, not grammar, but it's pedantry all the same. In a world of highly divided politics, most of which are voiced online, grammar-based digs like the one in this tweet have become some of the first projectiles launched to confront racist, homophobic, and xenophobic remarks. A 2016 news story out of the United Kingdom told of a white woman verbally accosting an immigrant woman who responded to the harassment by saying, "I speak better English than you." The victim later told reporters that the bigot's grammar was appalling. You can't blame someone in this situation for defending themselves however they can, but you have to ask why claiming to have better grammar than your antagonist is so often the weapon of choice. Linguists posit that this has to do with the notion that bigots are not only depraved but also stupid, and that the two are connected. It allows their critics to feel intellectually and culturally as well as morally superior, Cameron explains. That is a satisfying feeling, to be sure. But the reality is that grammar and morality don't actually have anything to do with one another, and attacking a bigot's poor grammar does not itself prove you are a better person. It might prove that you had the opportunity to become more educated or than they did, or that you spent a lot of time mastering the rules of standard English. Standard. However, the moral significance of what someone says is about the content, not the grammar. As Cameron says, Hitler wasn't any less a fascist because he could write a coherent sentence. The other problem with policing people's preposition usage or dangling modifiers is that poor grammar is often a criticism hurled at what is really just a non-standard English dialect. For instance, one might call out a speaker of African American vernacular English for using a double negative, like I didn't say nothing, without realizing that African American English is a systematic dialect, and the double negative isn't a mistake, but instead a legitimate part of AAE grammar. It isn't something we find in standard English anymore, but it used to be. Centuries ago, everyone from Chaucer to Shakespeare to everyday English speakers used double negatives. Again, it wasn't until those stuffy grammarians from the English standardization period decided we should copy Latin and nix the double negative that it was considered incorrect. Linguists know that non-standard forms of a language are not inherently bad. The grammatical forms themselves, like saying he be instead of he is, are not inherently worse or better than what we learned in English class. In African American vernacular English, phrases like he be singing and he be eating feature a unique grammatical tense called habitual be. A common misconception is that African American vernacular speakers arbitrarily use be instead of is in everyday situations, but the two actually mean something different. Habitual be is used to mark a repeated or customary action. So while a sentence like he is singing would mean he is currently singing, the sentence he be singing would mean he is someone who sings all the time. In a famous 2005 experiment, young speakers of both Standard English and African American English were shown images of Elmo eating cookies while Cookie Monster watched. Both sets of kids agreed that Elmo is eating cookies, but only the African American English speakers said that Cookie Monster be eating cookies, because that's a known habit of his character. These forms, again, I'll repeat, these forms aren't better or worse than what we used in English class. They're simply stigmatized based on how we feel about the type of person using them. When highly educated folks engage in grammar policing, they're basically just doing what misogynists do when they dismiss what a woman is saying because she uses uptalk or a vocal fry. It's another example of judging someone's speech based on preconceptions of who they are. Discerning listeners can tell that addressing someone's grammar is often just a way of avoiding the message itself. Language pedantry is snobbery, and snobbery is prejudice, Cameron says. And that, in my honest opinion, is nothing to be proud of. So pedantry, in a lot of ways, it reflects this default whiteness that exists in our culture. I talk a lot about default maleness in this book, but default whiteness goes hand in hand with that in the United States. So pedantry, in a lot of ways, reinforces these white supremacist notions. So I want to thank you for listening to that. And I find that, language is such a cool way to open a conversation about feminism, about sexism, about racism, because linguists have dedicated their lives to studying the science of language, the math of it. And there's no arguing with these empirical studies. And that's what I love about linguistics. So I want to thank you all for listening to that. And so next we're gonna shift gears here and do some Wordslut trivia. I don't know how many of you are trivia fans. I'm pretty bad at trivia, but being in this position of being the host instead of the one having to guess answers, I think will probably feel more comfortable to me, because I'm one of those people who knows a little or a lot about a little, not a little about a lot. So there's no really keeping score here. Those who want to participate, if you want to submit your answers in the chat, feel free to. But if you want to just kind of play honor system, go ahead. And so there's this Google form that Candace put together here. And if you stay till the end of trivia, we'll reveal a password that you can enter. There it is, that you can enter into that Google form. And I want people to keep commenting and keep asking questions, because I want this to be a discussion. I want to engage. I once misspelled a word in Spanish with a B and got pedantly called out by another student at my college. There was no reason for it, and I was asking an innocent question. Exactly. It's low-hanging fruit, right? Correcting other people's grammar allows us to feel intellectually as well as morally superior. But really, it's a cheap shot, and it's an excuse not to pay attention to the content of one's statement, which is the important part. Actually, on Instagram the other day, I was happy to see that I was tagged in a comment where someone was being criticized for having a typo in their protest sign. And someone tagged me and they were like, Amanda, do you want to explain to this person why it's a B instead of a V? I gotcha, Olivia. But I was tagged and the person was asking, Amanda, do you want to explain why it's unimportant that this sign was spelled wrong? And I was delighted to be there to defend that protester and sort of explain, first of all, our brains generally as human beings are oriented toward patterns, not minute details. And so we're incredibly good at being able to put together what a word says, even if there's a silly spelling error. And it would be great if we could all spell everything perfectly all the time, but revolutions are messy and communications are messy, or communication is messy, and typos are a part of that. And who knows, the word that was misspelled was the word white. She wrote it in big block letters, and in her hurry to do that, she left out the T. And who knows, maybe WHIE will become its own word. There are so many words in English, including the word syllabus, that started out actually as a spelling error. So that's interesting too. All right. Let's get this trivia game started. So, question number 1. There are many gender-neutral alternatives to the second-person plural address term you guys in English, including you all, you folks, yins, which is common in Appalachia, and of course, y'all. According to dialect maps, the citizens of which state use y'all the most? And I guess we'll take maybe a minute to guess your answers. I'll repeat that again. According to dialect maps, the citizens of which state use the word y'all the most? If people want to comment their guesses, that would be fun. Because I didn't know until I discovered this on dialect maps. We've got some guesses coming in. Seeing a lot of Mississippi. We've got a Georgia. These are all great guesses. People who've been to some of my let me get my copy and cheat. Yeah, these are all revealed in Wordslut. Kentucky, that's a good answer or a good guess. Florida, great guess. A lot of South Carolina could be. A lot. These states all use lots of y'all. I'm a big fan of y'all personally, even though there's not a whole lot of y'all happening in Baltimore where I grew up. These are all great guesses. Louisiana. I'm going to reveal the answer. It's Mississippi, y'all. Tubby and Coos is, of course, a Louisiana, good old Louisiana bookstore. And there's a lot of y'all happening in Louisiana, of course, and in Texas, and in South Carolina, and in Kentucky, and in Alabama. But it's Mississippi. All right, question number 2. There are 10 of these, and then there's a bonus. What is the term for a form of semantic change where a word starts out with a positive or neutral meaning, but changes over time to mean something negative? Bonus if you can name the opposite process. Extra bonus if you can define what buddy and sissy meant a few hundred years ago before one evolved to mean something more positive. As we all know, buddy today means friend, while the other devolved to mean something unflattering. Sissy now means a weak, wimpy, overly feminine man. So that's a complex one. What is the term for a form of semantic change where a word starts out with a positive or neutral meaning, but changes over time to mean something negative? Bonus if you can name the opposite process. Extra bonus if you can define what buddy and sissy used to mean. We've got some answers coming in. Who needs spelling? That's exactly right. Yeah, this is hard. This is really hard. Good thing we're not playing for points. We've got some good answers coming in. All right, I think anybody in the chat can see the answer is pejoration. That's the name of this form of semantic change. Amelioration is the opposite process. And yes, buddy and sissy used to mean brother and sister before one ameliorated to mean a friend, a pal with a cozy connotation, and one pejorated. Wahaha, I found my copy of Wordslut, nice. And one pejorated to have a negative meaning, of course, in reference to femininity. No surprises there. All right, question number 3. Nice job, everyone. people nailed that. A 2017 study analyzing Supreme Court oral argument transcripts from 1990, 2002, and 2015 determined that as more female justices were added to the bench, interruptions of women, both by fellow justices as well as subordinates, did not improve but escalated. In 2015, with 3 women on the bench, RBG, Sonia Sotomayor, and Elena Kagan, what percentage of all court interruptions were aimed at female justices? Answers within 3 percentage points will be considered correct. Actually, let's do 5 percentage points. That's really hard. So to repeat the question, basically over time, as there were more women added to the Supreme Court bench, interruptions of women by both colleagues and subordinates did not improve, but actually got worse. The last time that data was collected in 2015 with 3 women on the bench, What percentage of all court interruptions were aimed at women? So you can do the math there. If there are so many Supreme Court justices and 3 of them are women, 30%, all of them, 68%. That's a good guess. Within 5 percentage points will be considered correct if anyone else wants to. 65%, great guess. So the answer is 65.9% of all court interruptions. Yeah, pretty much exactly within 5 percentage points. Yeah, were directed at the female justices, even though there were only 3 of them. And if you reorient that math a little bit, it's actually even more egregious than the way that this particular stat is structured, but I'm not good enough at math in order to be able to phrase it very well. Okay, number 4. Here's a good one. An infix is a grammatical unit of meaning that you insert in the middle of a word, similar to a prefix, which comes at the beginning, like the un in unusual, or a suffix, which comes at the end, like the full in ungrateful, or grateful. There are plenty of foreign languages that use infixes all over the place, but in English, we only have 2. What are they? What are our 2 English infixes? What are your guesses? Do people need a hint? Do we need a hint? I can give a hint if necessary. I will say that these are 2 words that I use frequently as a potty mouth. What are our 2 English infixes? No guesses? No guesses? We've got fuck, we've got yas, one isn't safe for work, ain't, fucking, and I don't know. Yep, these are great guesses. The answers are fucking and damn. Exactly. Freaking is, of course, a derivative of fucking. Yeah, so we would, my example sentence that I always use is, I guarantee you, you're gonna love California. Exactly, abso-fucking-lutely. That's it. So that's fun. They're obviously used for emphasis. Yes, well done. All right, question number 5. Labeling women over-emotional, hormonal, crazy, or hysterical as a way to discredit their experiences is a form of linguistic objectification and subordination. It's also a microaggression. You know, we've been hearing a lot about racial microaggressions in recent weeks, and there are so many racial microaggressions. I've actually been keeping a tally. I mean, there are countless of them. You know, when Black folks are called articulate or angry or uppity, a word with incredibly racist origins. So these are more gender-based microaggressions, but labeling women over-emotional, hormonal, crazy, or hysterical as a way to discredit their experiences is a form of linguistic objectification and subordination. Derived from the ancient Greek word for womb, hysteria by the 19th century had become a medical term used to describe a female mental disorder characterized by what? So I'll rephrase or state it again. Derived from the ancient Greek word for womb, hysteria by the 19th century had become a medical term used to describe a female mental disorder characterized by what? What was hysteria, the medical condition for women? Any guesses? What were doctors diagnosing in women in particular by using the term hysteria? Being horny, listening to too much Def Leppard. Being horny, that's a good one. Good guess. Literally anything. They cured women by giving them orgasms. Yeah, hysterical paroxysm. My dad says, as my dad, I cannot say online. So When they were overly emotional. Ding, ding, ding. Lauren got it right. It was emotional instability without cause. That speaking their mind, periods. These are great answers. It was emotional instability without cause. That was considered hysteria. And there are some documents suggesting that the prescribed treatment for hysteria was something called hysterical paroxysm, which was when a doctor would masturbate a female patient to orgasm. So that's insane. All right. Next question. We have a short one here. I know these are wordy. What feminist scholar is responsible for creating the term intersectionality? Bonus point if you can name the year it was coined. Intersectionality. Extremely important topic. Intersectionality. I'll define it for y'all in case anyone needs it. Intersectionality, the complex cumulative way in which the efforts of multiple forms of discrimination, such as racism, sexism, and classism, combine, overlap, or intersect, especially in the experiences of marginalized individuals or groups. Okay. Oh, we've got, yes, Issa, I see you. Kimberly Crenshaw. And do we have a year? I see one guess, 1970. So Kimberly Crenshaw is the correct answer. An amazing Black feminist scholar. The 80s, 1988. Ooh, these are good guesses. I believe it was 89. So, yeah, very impressive. Kimberly Crenshaw had that at the ready. Exactly. Okay. Question number 7. Vocal fry, uptalk, and hedges, including the word like, also known as discourse markers, are some of the most reviled characteristics in young women's speech, even though linguists have found that there is nothing inherently ditzy about them. In fact, women use them not as mindless affectations, but as power tools for establishing and strengthening relationships. And actually, over the years, men have come to use them about as much as women do. Young women are, of course, our language's linguistic innovators, as are especially young women of color, young Black women. What is vocal fry, and what is one social purpose linguists have found that it serves? So I'll demonstrate vocal fry, but if you can describe what it is, then you'll get the point. We're not playing for points, of course, but this is the sound of vocal fry. And employers and people in general, our culture in general, hates the sound of vocal fry when young women use it. That was a very exaggerated example of vocal fry, but what is vocal fry is the question. And what is one social purpose linguists have found that it serves? This is a hard one. Any guesses? Who's got some guesses? Abusing your vocal cords. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, my vocal folds feel pretty relaxed. Oh, but of course, Linda, you're a singer, so singers are trained to disdain vocal fry. Maybe it does damage your vocal cords if you're trying to sing. When you register your lowest vocal cord, your lowest one, I think the closure of the glottal gland therefore makes it the lowest sound possible. When you close the voice box more, it's that buzzing noise that's really bad for your voice when you sing, but makes you seem disinterested and super cool. Deepening your voice. These are great guesses. So I'll read the correct answer that I put here, but a lot of these are really close. So also known as creaky voice, vocal fry is a sound quality that is produced when a speaker compresses their vocal cords, reducing the airflow and frequency of vibrations through the larynx, causing the voice to sound, well, creaky. It could be a way for women to compete with men's voices since it's so low in register, to sound more authoritative. According to linguistics scholar Ikiku Patricia Yuasa, creaky voice may provide a growing number of American women with a way to project an image of accomplishment while retaining female desirability. And it can also be used to convey a sense of disinterest in a topic, as someone else mentioned there. Yeah, it makes your voice sound deeper, to put someone at ease so you can say something strong without sounding obnoxious. I haven't heard that one before, but that was from my dad. All right, we've got 3 more questions and then a bonus. So gender stereotypes are hiding in English in countless ways, like how the term penetration implies and reinforces the idea that sex is from the male perspective, like sex is defined as something a man does to a woman. What is an alternative term mentioned in Wordslut that paints sex from the vulva's perspective? I apologize to my many family members who are tuning in to this live stream who just had to hear me utter that sentence. To utter me. Like to milk a cow. That's terrible. Okay. So what is an alternative term to penetration mentioned in Wordslut? Or actually, you can create your own. Yes, Tori got one. Envelopment. Yes. Who could forget? Oh, I'm not saying anything because my dad is here too. That's hilarious. Oh my God, Lila, it's Lila. Lila's my favorite Wordslut reader. And Lila's dad too. Hi, Lila and your dad. Envelopment, yeah. The other 2 that were suggested were enclosure and sheathing. Although but oh yeah, Olivia, you saw the lesson on Instagram, yes. But yeah, I encourage everyone to think of their own vulva-centric alternatives to penetration. Awesome. Yeah, envelopment it is. That's a zinger. All right, 2 more. Okay. Question number 9. When the word lesbian was added to the Oxford English Dictionary, the following quote from writer Cecil Day Lewis was included as the example sentence. I shall never write real poetry. Women never do, unless they're invalids or lesbians or something. What year did lesbian finally earn an entry in the Oxford English Dictionary? What year was it? And I'll say within 5 years will be counted as correct. If anyone has some guesses. I know I was shocked when I learned this answer. Of course, the Oxford English Dictionary is oh no, weird. My bracelet just broke off my wrist. The patriarchy broke my bracelet. That's my conspiracy theory. What year was lesbian entered into the Oxford English Dictionary? Within 5 years will be considered correct. 71. That's a very good guess. Actually, let's say within 10 years, because this one's actually tricky. This is a hard one. I'll go ahead and reveal. It's actually 1976. 1976, 82, 77, 75. These are very close. 1980. These are very close. Yeah. So, really what that fun fact has to do with is really the power of language to legitimize experiences for a lot of people. And especially now, I'm really seeing so much information come to the fore with regard to experiences of Black Americans, and so much of the language that works to legitimize certain experiences and delegitimize certain experiences. So it can be incredibly powerful. If your very identity is not even a word in the Oxford English Dictionary, it really reflects that your identity is not recognized by the culture at large, seeing as dictionaries reflect general use. Of course, dictionary makers and lexicographers are largely white male, but their assigned job is at least to reflect general usage these days. Okay, one more and then there's a bonus. Okay, number 10. Women in hip hop are responsible for many of our language's reclaimed gendered slurs, including bitch and hoe. Since the 1990s, Black female recording artists have used the phrase bad bitch to refer to a confident, desirable, independent woman as opposed to a mean or hostile one. Grabs dictionary and checks for all the gender and sexuality terms. Yeah. Yeah. Since the 1990s, Black female recording artists have used the phrase bad bitch to refer to a confident, desirable, independent woman as opposed to a mean or hostile one. Name a 90s female hip hop artist who used bitch in her lyrics to mean something empowering. So any 90s, and I'm sure there are lesser known Black female recording artists from the 90s who used bitch in ways that I am not aware of. So the hip hop aficionados attending, please enlighten us. But according to my research, there are a couple of famous Black female recording artists who were some of the first people ever to use bitch to mean something positive. Can you name one? Mary J. Blige. Good answer. What is a Mary J. Blige bitch lyric? Is there, I'm seeing, so I'm seeing a Mary J. Blige song that actually uses bitch in a negative context. Oh, but what is this one? Me and my bitch. Sorry, I'm gonna go down a Mary J. Blige rabbit hole now. Anyways, that's that. Maybe I'm gonna. Okay, Mary J. Missy Elliott, Salt and Pepper, Lil Kim, Missy Elliott. Hell yeah. So the ones that I have are Lil Kim, Trina, Missy Elliott, and Queen Latifah. But interestingly, as of the 2000s, bitch has again been used in a lot of negative contexts in pop and hip hop music. So we definitely. Ooh, Roxanne Shante. Who is that? Giving me something to investigate. Yeah, I mean, music can be hugely influential in how we use certain slurs and how we use certain words. I think the power of it is sometimes underestimated. So thank you all for participating. And now I have a trivia question that's going to be incredibly easy for some of you. It's a bonus and a crapshoot for others. So Tubby and Coos is an amazing New Orleans bookstore owned by Candace here, my lovely moderator. Candace and I, sorry, I'm distracted by the comments because what I really just want to do is hang out with you all and not have it be this awkward virtual thing. Anyway, the bonus question, last one I'll ask for trivia is, Candace and I are related. How exactly? The lovely owner of Tubby and Coos Mid-City Bookshop in New Orleans and I are related. How exactly? Yeah, family, no spoilers. No spoilers if you absolutely know. Although, to be fair, I had to look up the terminology because, well, I've already said too much. Sometimes it's hard to know the naming conventions of certain family members because it gets really confusing with the greats and the great-greats and the once removeds. I'll wait a few more moments for people to guess. Oh my God, my dad revealed it. Dad, come on. Candace and I are second cousins on my mom's side. So my mom's cousin, Gail's daughter, right?
Yes, that's right. Our grandfathers are brothers.
Our grandfathers are brothers, exactly. Wait, so and Tubby and Coos,
yes,
your papa, and then I had a different papa, and we were brothers.
So Amanda's grandpa is Tubby's brother.
That's right. Good job, everyone.
Hey, Craig, you had to do that.
Come on, Dad. Really fun. Terrible. All right. So the last thing that I have another second cousin on my dad's in the chat, Lauren here. Okay, so the last thing that we're gonna do here. Sorry, I had like such a nice setup over there for my little moment, my live stream moment, and I just had to come back over here with my messy pillows because apparently the sound was bad, but that's okay. You can't take dads anywhere. Sheesh, so embarrassing. Poor Craig. All right, so the last activity that we're gonna do before we'll like take a couple questions, even though I know so many of you, or I've met so many of you on the internet, etc. We can still have a chit chat. But okay, so the last thing we're gonna do, and those who are underage, I'm looking at you, Lila, can't necessarily participate. But maybe you can with some Martinellis or something like that. We're gonna do a little drinking game. So there's a section in the book where I break down the 6 different uses of the word like. And this is a section of the book that I've read many times in live events. But I use the word like a lot in this section. And so I thought it would be fun to do a little drinking game where every time I utter the word like, those of you who have, a beverage with you, and it doesn't have to be alcoholic, those who have a beverage with you can take a drink every time I utter the word like. So I'm gonna open to page 119 here, and I have to say it is very nice having this exceedingly portable paperback. I love the hardback. I love a hardback. There's something so romantic about a hardback, but this is so easy to tote around. So
Amanda, before you read, can you give everyone the password for the Google form so that they can enter to win the paperback?
Yes, absolutely. So those of you who'd like to enter to win, am I going to drink too? I could. Should I go to the fridge and grab myself a little something? I have it. All right, we'll do that. I'm not going to be able to drink every time I say the word like because I'm not going to even be able to read it because I say like so much throughout this section. But let's see here. Oh my God, nobody judge my messy kitchen. Ah! All right. I have these little like portable, what are they? Like these little individual champagnes. So I'll use one of those. Wow, this is getting really informal here. Yes, okay, so if you would like to enter to win a signed copy of the paperback, which I will personally mail you, I will sign it, I will write an inscription in it, and mail it to you. If you would like to enter to win, do I get to just like make up the password?
Yeah,
okay.
You can do whatever you want.
Okay, awesome. So how about the password is the password is going to be language is power, because that's the sentiment that I most want to communicate. So the password is language is power, and if you enter in the little URL that you see there, if you enter that password, then you'll be entered to win. And if you already have a copy, then you can give it to someone as a gift, and that would be much appreciated. Okay, so I have my little mini Cook's champagne here. Woo! I'm truly not going to be able to drink it though because I say like so much. All right, so I'm at the bottom of page 119. Take a drink every time I say the word like, if you like. Okay. Despite the word's detractors, like is in fact extremely useful and versatile. Alexander Darcy, Canadian linguist at the University of Victoria, has dedicated literature research to identifying and understanding the many functions of like. Darcy ebulliently describes her work for UVic's YouTube channel. Like is a little word that we really, really don't like at all, and we want to blame young girls who we think are destroying the language, she explains. People are going to be so toasted by the end of this. But the truth is that like has been a part of English for more than 200 years. We can find speakers today in their 70s, 80s, and 90s around little villages in the United Kingdom, for example, Darcy says with a smile, who use like in many of the same ways that young girls today are using it. According to Darcy, there are 6 completely distinct forms of the word like. The 2 oldest types in English are the adjective like and the verb like. This is absurd. In the sentence, I like your suit. It makes you look like James Bond. Maybe we better take a drink every other like, because I don't want to be responsible for people's accidents. The link to donate. So I think we have the link somewhere, and Candace can share. It's Color of Change. And then you can email your receipt once you donate to Amanda Montell at gmail.com, and I will match every dollar personally. In the sentence, I like your suit, it makes you look like James Bond. The first like is a verb, and the second is an adjective. And even the crabbiest English speakers are fine with both. I can't sip this White Claw fast enough. Today, these 2 likes sound exactly the same. So most people don't even notice that they're different words with separate histories. They're homonyms, just how the noun watch, meaning the timepiece on your wrist, and the verb watch, meaning what you do with your eyes when you turn on the TV, are homonyms. The Oxford English Dictionary says that the verb like comes from the Old English term Lycian, and the adjective comes from the Old English lich. The 2 converged at some point over the last 800 years or so, giving us lots of time to get used to them. But 4 new likes developed much more recently than that, and Darcy says that these are all separate words with distinct uses as well. Only 2 of these likes are used more frequently by women, and only one of them is thought to have been masterminded by young Southern California females in the 1990s. Valley Girl stereotype. That one would be the quotative like, which you hear in, I was like, I want to see Superwoman. As lampooned as it is, pragmatically speaking, this like is one of my favorites because it allows you to tell a story, to relay something that happened without having to quote the interaction verbatim. For example, in the sentence, my boss was like, I need to see those papers by Monday. And I was like, are you fucking kidding me? You're not repeating what you truly said, but instead using like to convey what you wanted to say or how you felt in the interaction. Thanks, Valley Girls. This very useful quotative like continues to explode in common usage. The other like that women tend to use more frequently is categorized as a discourse marker and can be found in contexts such as, like, the suit isn't even new. A discourse marker, sometimes called a filler word, is a type of phrase that can help a person connect, organize, or express a certain attitude with their speech. Other discourse markers include hedges, like just, you know, and actually. There are 2 last forms of like. One is an adverb, which is used to approximate something, as in the sentence, I bought this suit like 5 years ago. As of the 1970s, this like has largely replaced the approximate adverb about in casual conversation, and it has always been used equally among men and women, so it isn't hated as much. And last, there's the discourse particle like, which we hear in, I think the suit is like my favorite possession. This like is similar to the discourse marker, except that it's not used in quite the same way, syntactically or semantically. Plus, dudes use it just as much as women do. Darcy doesn't know quite why that is, though they're almost never ridiculed for it. Objectively, we can see that using 1, 2, or all of these different likes in the same sentence isn't inherently bad. As a matter of fact, some studies have demonstrated that speech lacking in likes and you knows can sound too careful, robotic, or unfriendly. So next time someone accuses you of saying like too much, feel free to ask them, oh really? Which kind? Because Darcy says that ordinary speakers tend to buy into the Valley Girl stereotype so hardcore, blaming young women for all of these likes, simply because they don't notice the differences among them. So everybody's probably properly sauced by now if you were participating. That's a lot of likes. I know that in writing school, they will teach you about, varying your language as you're writing, but sometimes that just isn't possible. And when you're talking about the 6 different functions of like, you got to use all 6 over and over. Oh, that's sweet. Yeah, I wanna thank you all so much for tuning in, and giving me an opportunity to share some of this stuff with you guys. And I really, oh, you guys, whoa, did you just hear that? It's because I've been watching so much YouTube where people are like, hey guys, hey guys, hey guys. I like never say that in my everyday life. Whoa, that was like, wow, like who are you in there? I want to thank you all so much for tuning in, and I encourage you to Google this "Talking Black in America" documentary, and I can also I hope that the paywall is taken down at some point, because it's such an amazing documentary and so enlightening. And if you're interested in the history of language, or oh gosh, everybody's is typing their experience. Anyway, if you're interested in the history of language, and even if you're not, it's so important to become educated about the relationship between language and power as it relates to different marginalized communities, not only women and other marginalized genders, but race and the intersection of the two. And I think the power of language is so underestimated, but it can really uplift people or disempower people in such material ways. So that documentary is amazing, and it's just top of mind because it's what I consumed today before we all hopped on. So thank you so much. And if anybody has any questions, like feel free to pop them in the chat. And if anybody wants any other resources, I was thinking I might put together a reading list. Sorry, I'm just like, I'm bad at reading these comments and focusing. Oh, that's very sweet. Thank you all. Yeah, I was thinking of putting together a reading list, like a sociolinguistics reading list as it relates to race and culture. What is my least favorite word is a question. Probably girl boss these days, because also right now I'm writing my second book about the language of cults. And not only does girl boss reflect and reinforce the idea that the word boss is tacitly coded male, and not only is it a diminutive used to describe grown women, but it's also a term used by the MLM community to target and victimize innocent people. So yeah, girl boss, not a fan. Okay, cool. People are interested in the reading list. The most surprising thing I learned while writing the book. So I think, the process of writing Wordslut was really cool because it was a reminder of so much of what I had learned in college, and an invitation to explore that further and to share it with others. Could I give my email one more time for the donation receipt? Absolutely. It's amandammontell@gmail.com. But I think, one of the areas that I was excited to delve into even more than what I had learned in college while writing Wordslut was the stuff about grammatical gender, and how languages other than English handle pronouns and lexical items that are gendered in English, like boy, girl, man, woman, king, queen. There are languages that don't have gender at all, gendered lexical items, gendered grammar, none of it. There are languages that don't have gendered pronouns, but differentiate who you're talking about in a conversation using other really creative systems. One is called obviation, where a person's pronouns in a sentence change depending on whether or not they're central to the conversation at hand, rather than their gender, which I think is a really cool way to approach that. And, you know, some languages are like really overtly gendered in a way that informs the language's speakers' perceptions of men and women and everybody in between in real life. And so that was really cool to rediscover and explore further. As someone who struggles with linguistics, I feel this conversation is a compelling way of learning a bit more about language. Thanks. Yeah, I just you know, I was so dumbfounded when I got to college and discovered that the field of linguistics and sociolinguistics in particular existed, because, you know, questions about language and culture and how a person uses language and how those language forms can affect how they're perceived in everyday life were things that I had been thinking about for a long time. And so I was so excited to discover that other people were thinking about them too and doing empirical studies about them. The Language of Cults sounds amazing. When does that book come out? That book comes out next summer, and I'm currently getting very close to finishing the first draft of the manuscript. I just finished writing the section of the book on the language of contemporary fitness cults. So the book explores the wide spectrum of groups that the word cult can be applied to, from those as notoriously destructive as Jonestown and Scientology, to those on the fence like MLMs, to those as seemingly constructive and ethical and innocuous as workout communities, and looking at, you know, how these groups use language to do things like create solidarity, community, or an us versus them mentality, how they instill ideology. And so much cult language is actually present in our everyday lives and informs how we view people. So yeah, podcasts about cults. Yeah, I'm actually pitching around a podcast of my own about cults right now. So fingers crossed that I get to do that, because cults are just an endless subject of intrigue. Yeah, so I will definitely put together this reading list of sociolinguistic resources. And it's not only a reading list. Actually, some of these things are going to be are articles, but some of them are books. But I'll also include little documentaries, like Talking Black in America, and some videos on YouTube, and also what else? Even like some TikToks. There's a Black linguist on TikTok who I really love, and yeah, I'll definitely put that together, and I'll be talking about it more on my Instagram. Those who've been watching these Amanda University videos that I've been posting on Instagram, I'm gonna start doing those again when it feels like the right time to do that. But in the meantime, thank you all so much for doing this with me, and I hope I had fun and learned something. And thank you, Candace, for hosting.
Yeah, and I'm going to do a few plugs here at the end just to make sure. Of course, we want you to, if you haven't read Wordslut, if you're on here and haven't read it, please read it. It is a really good book. I don't just say this because Amanda's my cousin. I actually really did enjoy this book. I learned a lot of things I didn't already know, and I'm fascinated with language as well. So this made me think about the language that I use in a different way also. So I think it's a really great book, and it'll make you question the way that you use language, which I think is great. And I think it starts a lot of really cool conversations. So thanks for writing it, Amanda. And if you haven't read it, now you can get the paperback, which is awesome. And of course, we'd love you to order it from us if you can. We are at chubbyandcoos.com. You can place an order there. Unfortunately, we can't ship internationally. So I know there are some people, but hopefully the people from Argentina have probably read it already. But if you haven't read the book, definitely get it from us, from chubbyandcoos.com, place an order. And if you haven't entered the raffle yet, go ahead and enter that. This is the link. I've entered it a few times in the chat as well, so you can just click on it from the chat. So don't forget to go and enter the raffle. The password was language is power. So go ahead and do that. And also, we want you to donate to Color of Change at colorofchange.org. And when you do, please send your receipts to Amanda M. Montell at Gmail so that she can match the amount that you're donating. This is a really important cause. And Tubby and Coos will also be donating a portion of book sales of Amanda's book there as well. So if you buy the book, it will be going to a good cause also. So thank you, Amanda. This was really super fun.
Thank you. I've never done something like this before. Now I know if I do it again, do it in this corner and not over there.
Yeah, and have the other person. I did notice that when I muted myself, we could hear you a lot better. So
okay, cool.
As well to the next person. Yeah, so thank you to everyone for coming and for donating and for buying books and all that good stuff as well.
Yeah, thank you all. See you on the internet.
Y'all have a good night.
Bye.